Have you ever noticed that some of the most responsible people make the slowest progress in business? Now, that sounds kind of backwards, Doesn't it? Because, we're taught that if we're being responsible, actually the opposite should happen. So listen, if we've never met before, my name is Maya Haridat. I'm a business coach and speaker, and I help entrepreneurs uncover what they don't know that they don't know about running successful businesses. And I want to break down this conversation today about being responsible and the hidden cost of being responsible when you're running a business, because a lot of times we're taught kind of the opposite and we don't understand how that shows up and impacts our business. And let me share with you, a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to judge a business plan competition. And it was pretty exciting, right? There were so many entrepreneurs that were there. They were chosen and narrowed down to the small group that got to present to myself and a few other judges. And to be fair, I really liked the ideas. They were some pretty amazing ideas. They had very clear problems that they were solving. They developed a very unique solution. They understood a little bit about who they were going to serve. And there were quite a few of them that had already generated revenue, which is always a win in my book. Actually, one business, now that I think about it, one business had made over 300,000 over a couple of years. So there were some businesses there that were really, on their A game. And I remember thinking like, this is amazing. This is solid. And then we started into the part that a lot of people fear when it comes to pitch competitions. We started asking some questions. And I distinctly remember that one of the questions that came up for me, because this plan was going to award money to the individuals that were going to potentially win, I wanted to know, how are you going to take this grant, right? This sizable grant, this check, and turn it into more money in your business? Like, that's really what the question really is. And look, we all need money for our businesses. There are a ton of expenses I got in my own business right now that I really wish somebody would pay. But that's not why I'm there as a judge. I am there to be able to understand, if I give you this check, if I give you this money, how are you going to make more in your business? And so there were a few people that were on the panel. There was, some folks that had a background in finance. There were some folks that actually were really successful entrepreneurs. And we started getting into the questions, y'all. We were asking about things like, what are your sales projections? What happens if your business were to double? How would you handle that momentum? What would you do? What systems would need to change? What processes would need to change in order to handle double of that? Asking also the real questions of like, well, how much capital do you actually need to grow? Now, if any of you have ever watched Shark Tank before, you're thinking, oh, this sounds exactly like Shark Tank. And kind of, sort of, there are some resemblances, although we weren't dealing in the gazillion trillion dollars that the sharks deal with. But we do want to know some ROI about these businesses, right? Things like, how did you calculate your pricing so that there's clarity around what your margins look like, that there's clarity around where you're going to be able to grow this company. And here's the deal, y'all. I got to tell you, the individuals really did a good job of trying to answer those questions on the spot. They had been in a program for a few weeks where they were learning about how to grow their businesses and how to take them to the next level. But I got to tell you the honest truth. I watched a lot of people freeze when we started with these questions. And somebody gave me feedback later on, one of the audience members, to say like the questions weren't really, we weren't there to try to be able to like grill people. I'm not there to tear you down and try to, make you feel bad about yourself because you don't understand some of these constructs. We were really there to understand, how do we help understand what growth looks like for your particular business, right? Like, even if you tell me you have sales of 100,000, even if you tell me you have 200 clients that are right now, great. Even once you get that 201 client, what starts to shift in your business? What changes? What expenses are going to reduce now because you've got this large volume of clients that you're kind of working with? How do you actually grow? And I watched one by one, y'all. Every single one of the founders were freezing in a different way, right? And look, it's not because they weren't smart, and it's not because they weren't being responsible and working hard. They had tried to answer, right? They gave me answers like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to school and see what, and get some more training on this particular area. And, someone else referenced their faith and how they know that this is about a faith walk and this is what they believe that they've been called to be able to do. And a few people guessed or tried to kind of figure it out. Nobody became defensive. I think they understood we were there to try to support and help them, but they answered from the place that they knew rather than the key question that's underneath it all, which is, how do you grow the business? And listen, y'all, on the way home, I got stuck in crazy rain, so I had plenty of time to think. I couldn't stop thinking about this question. And it hit me because the question we're asking, although we were asking about the numbers and about the sales and about the growth projections, it actually wasn't about finances. It's really a thinking problem, believe it or not. Okay. And I recognize it because listen, I used to think exactly the same way. Okay. Any 70s or 80 babies out there, there's probably even a few of you in the 90s that was raised by 70 and 80s babies. You will understand where I'm going here. When I grew up, responsibility was not this optional thing, okay? Like, you were responsible. You did your homework. You respected adults around you. There was always a certain way you addressed them. You showed up on time. If you said you were going to do something, you did it. Like, there was a ground level of responsibility that you had if you grew up during the time frame that I grew up with it. As a matter of fact, I remember one time coming home. I had not been, home for a while to visit my family, and I didn't even have, like, I knew what day of the week it was and what time it was, and I just automatically started going around the house and, like, emptying the garbages because I knew the garbage had to go out the next day. I hadn't been there in like months. How did I remember a garbage schedule? Because it was drilled into me about what responsibility is. It was drilled into me to make sure that I knew that I had a role to play. I had to work hard. I had to stay focused. I had to be responsible. And then good things would happen to me. Now, I want to be honest. That advice is not wrong. There's a lot of advice that I've gotten like that over the years, and it's actually good advice, right? Like, I have a roof over my head, grateful for that. I have food in my refrigerator. I have a family that I love. I don't take any of that for granted. So I'm not knocking responsibility, especially right now. Like, when I look at the cost of groceries, utility bills that cost like what mortgages cost, and like everything else seems to cost twice the amount of what it costs. Responsibility helps you build stability. It helps you keep things running. But here's what nobody told us about running a business. Responsibility and entrepreneurship are not the same things. Responsibility teaches you how to protect what you already have. It teaches you how to be able to shine your shoes so that you can actually keep the shoes longer, assuming that they're a quality shoe or whatever, so that you can protect what you have. Entrepreneurship is about building something that doesn't yet exist. It's a completely different skill set. And a lot of times when we're being taught about how to grow our businesses, a lot of times if we're not careful, we think that the very thing that got us to be able to start, like the responsible thing, I made sure I opened up my bank account. I took responsibility and I started my legal structure, and I sat down and tried to create a marketing plan and how I was going to get things going. But the very thing that got you started is also the thing that can limit how much you grow, believe it or not. And I see this all the time with entrepreneurs. I really do. I can recall coaching calls where someone would talk to me about spending 3 hours reorganizing their office, right? The office, I have to get the office clean first before I can make sales calls. Maya, I can't talk to anybody with a dirty office around me. How is that going to look? Well, we all work in these virtual environments. We know exactly how to square off the TV and the monitors and things like that. They ain't got to see the whole room, right? I've heard it a gazillion times. Oh Maya, I have to update the website. Like, the website right now is not working. And then when I start drilling down into how they make sales, a lot of entrepreneurs make their sales through referrals. The website is not what's stopping you. Now, I'm not saying your website should look like trash. We are not trying to do that as well either. Let's be clear about that. But the website was never what was stopping you in the first place. It wasn't. It wasn't. Answering every email first before you start on the sales and the marketing. Well, by the time you then have to try to follow up with clients, you're exhausted. You're exhausted. You're not thinking about building partnerships at that point. You're not thinking about reaching out and making new connections with people who could potentially buy from you. You definitely can't think about, how do I double next year's revenue, right? When you start thinking about how to grow revenue, at a certain point, there's only so many events that you can attend. You have to think in a different way of how to actually grow the business, because you can only grow yourself and the hours that you have to be able to spend by so much. And even if you're hiring employees, it's actually thinking about the strategy behind everything so that you're actually able to really grow. And so I see this happen a lot of time, that responsibility becomes the default because I can control the work when it's responsible. Cleaning my desk, it's done. It looks good. Reorganizing my files, it's done. It's good. Forecasting next year's revenue? Child, please. I ain't trying to do that. That's complicated. What do you even mean by that? Which, for the record, you actually know what forecasting next year's revenue is, because if you ever had a job and then you said, oh, I want to earn money next year and I need to do these 3 things in order to try to figure out how to get that job up there, that's forecasting revenue. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that, really. Following up with a prospect, right? I just read an article recently that for people who are in different types of service industries, like speaking and coaching and some industries like that, the follow-up game is what's winning right now, right? It's not just because you know how to do your craft really well. It's because you have to understand that the people who are in charge are inundated with work right now. And if they don't have the ability to hire you right here, right now, your job is to keep the follow-up going so that when they are ready to hire, they've built a relationship with you and you're easy to be able to connect with, right? This is where it gets complicated. And look, I know that things like hiring your first employee could be pretty uncomfortable for a lot of people. And we all say we want the employee. And you could figure out the logistics of the actual hiring part, but how do you train this employee so that you're putting them in an area that's going to show growth in your business long term and not just them doing busy work that costs you money? How do you create a growth strategy? How do you decide how you're going to figure out how to be able to grow the business? I have one of my coaching clients, real talk, one of my coaching clients right now, one of her responsibilities on a weekly basis, she's making good money in her business, but one of her responsibilities is she's got to go out and take walks. That's how she gets her ideas and ideate so that we can work on the growth part of the business and the growth strategy. Very uncomfortable for someone that loves checking off their things to do list. Very uncomfortable, but that's where business growth lives at. It's in the uncertainty, right? It's in that space where you're starting to think through in a different way. And I want to bring this back to that pitch competition because I really, really love those entrepreneurs that were in the room, for them dedicating their time to go through this program. I mean, you got to really, really have like big, a comfort level, right? And willing to take risks to stand up there and pitch your business. That's hard. It's really, really hard. And you've got to learn how to think about growth. And I think a lot of times it's very, very easy to think about, how do I 0.5 the business? How do I just get, if I have 5 customers, how do I get 7? But the real question is how do you get 50? Right? It's not the 5 to 7 or 10. It's when you have this exponential growth. Or I'll even put my own self out here on this one. When I have my service-based business, when I first got started, if someone hired my company to do a youth entrepreneurship program and I'm delivering the program, and then somebody else wants another program at the same time, and then I'm trying to explain to them, oh, I have other speakers and I have other instructors, and they're like, no, I used to deal with this all the time. I want you. We only want you. We won't hire someone else. How do you grow then? That's a real issue that comes up in your business because your clients want you. They know the result you can deliver. They know the results that maybe you and maybe 1 or 2 employees can deliver. How do you get 5 times bigger then? How do you have 5 programs running at the same time? How do you have 10 programs running at the same time? And I got to tell you, it breaks my heart right now because there's a lot of really talented people out here running their businesses. And you're not smart. I know that was kind of weird the way I said that, but you get where I'm going. It's just that you're missing a framework. I love frameworks. My educators and those that love to learn, you'll know exactly where I'm going on this one. It's how you think. It's how you organize your thinking together. And for a lot of people, no one is teaching people how to be able to reverse engineer growth, right? It's, oh, well, just get this technology tool and they will come. Y'all know that nonsense ain't going to happen. People ain't just going to come just because you got this tech tool. It's not even just saying, I want more customers, right? Like I get tired when I've taught a number of entrepreneurship programs, and in the first class, I'll say, well, why are you here for this program? And it's, well, I want to make more money. Well, or I want more customers, like a variation of that. But how many customers? What's your average sale? What does it take? What's the sales process it takes in order for you to get more customers in? What's your close rate? If you close 1 out of every 4 conversations and you're now telling me you want to like double or triple, can you handle closing that many conversations and still get the job done? How many conversations do you need to have this quarter? How many people do you need to talk to in order based upon your close rate? If you're closing 1 out of every 5 people that you speak to right now, how many conversations? I just did the math for you there. How many conversations do you need to have this upcoming quarter? That's the thinking. And you can't be lazy about it. Now, there's a ton of tools out there that can help you with it. It actually isn't hard math. It's actually old school math, like third, fourth grade math for the record. So you don't even have to do that new math to figure it out. But when you start thinking like this, y'all, when you start thinking at this level, when you start thinking about these ideas in this way, you're going to start designing a business that grows. So listen, if you take nothing else from this video, right? I hope that you take these two things. Responsibility is a beautiful quality. I love it. Don't lose it. It's valuable. It's beautiful. But do not confuse maintaining your business and the security you have with maintaining your business with growing your business. They're two separate things. Growth is probably going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to take some thinking work to figure out how to be able to do it. And then this is the second thought, and I want you to ask yourself this question every Friday. Did I spend more time this week protecting today's business or building tomorrow's business? Now, for those of you that are just dreamers right now, y'all not taking care of today's business, I ain't asking y'all that question. That's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to those of you that are in the trenches. You're making money, you're seeing things come in, but you're not seeing the growth that you would like to see. Tomorrow's business deserves your attention too. And the entrepreneurs who grow are not less responsible than everybody else. They're simply responsible for something else different. They're responsible for building a future that doesn't yet exist. And that changes everything. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this for you. Hope this video was incredibly helpful and insightful. Check out the resources that I have underneath this link for free so that you can find ways to grow your business. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe so that you can stay tuned for more sessions like this upcoming. All right, take care.